Hi there, it's Misty. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's been quite some time since I've done this. It's been about 6 months. I was planning on doing a separate video and it just didn't happen, so I'll talk about that as I go here. But let me start off this card video. I'm sharing my design team project with you that I made for this week's Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge, and the challenge is called Moving Parts, and we are showcasing products by Fawn. And I'm just kind of mapping out what I wanted to do here because I've never made a slider card, so I'm a very visual person. I had to see exactly what was going on here. And I'll have all the products that I use listed and linked in the video description below this video. And let's get going here. So I'm using the stitched wavy border by Fawn to make my ocean wave. And all of this is on the Tim Holtz watercolor paper, since I knew I was going to be doing a lot of ink blending. And I'm using the simple stitched hillside border die for my little hill and the slide on over die, both by Fawn. I'm going to end up swapping out my little hillside here. I started out, I thought I was going to use the Nina Desert Storm cardstock, but I just didn't like the way the splatters looked on it. I guess because it's not watercolor paper, so I'm going to end up swapping that out for some more of the Tim Holtz watercolor paper. Once I ran this through my die cutting machine, I had a couple little smudges on it, so I want to make a point to tell you that I used my sand eraser here to remove those little smudges, and it removed it, but just pay attention to that and I'll explain further down in the video what happened. Alright, I'm going to take some distress ink for my hillside and I'm going to ink blend antique linen all over it, and then I'll top it off with some gathered twigs just to give it a little bit of a darker color. So it would have been great on that Desert Storm cardstock, but once I put the splatters on it, you can see it actually up in the top right hand corner there. The splatters were just too big, or bigger than I wanted them to be, so I wanted it to be kind of subtle splatters. Speaking of splatters, I'm using the Tim Holtz splatter brush here, which works really great. I love this brush. You can use a paintbrush too if you don't have this. The difference with this is you just have a little bit more control over it, I feel like. And I'm going to use some Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink for my ocean. And I'm not trying to make it even, I'm just trying to get color on it because, you know, oceans aren't even, so I wasn't too particular about it. Then I'm splattering some Salty Ocean Distress ink, and I'm also going to add some blueprint sketch as well, just to add a little contrast. Then I decided to add some little waves in my ocean here, so I'm using the Sandy Beach Accents die from Fawn, and it's gonna leave a little opening which allows me to add some adorable little fish into my scene. So once I kind of figure out where I want my openings to be, I'm gonna go ahead and tape them down and then run them through my die cutting machine. And let me say again that this was my first time making a slider card, so you're going to see me putting it all together and lining it all up over and over because I'm trying to make sure that I'm not going to mess it up somehow. I was really worried about that. But yeah, so luckily I didn't mess it up. But that's why I keep putting everything together over and over. Alright, I'm just going to use some tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink for my sky, and I'm just going to do a really light blue. And I had all that ink on my glass mat, so I just tried to soak it up there so I don't waste it. So see where I use that sand eraser, you can see little smudges. So the reason why I said just to remember this is, and you know, some of you may already know this, but it was news to me, or maybe I did know and forgot, but if you use a little sand eraser and if you plan on ink blending over it or even coloring over it, it's gonna be a different color than the rest of it, just because, you know, you kind of sanded off the top layer of that paper. So just keep that in mind if you plan on coloring over an area that you use the sand eraser on. It's great if you plan on keeping the area white, but just keep that in mind if you're going to color something and you use the sand eraser. Alright, I'm using spiced marmalade for the center of my for the center of my sun here. Center of my heart. And I move on to wild honey, which was kind of a waste. I should have just used the spiced marmalade a little bit more out onto the sun rays and then topped off the edges with the squeezed lemonade. So this step was totally avoidable. Or you can add it, I mean, if you like it, but I didn't really notice much of a difference, because you pretty much get a color similar to that when you mix the spiced marmalade and the squeezed lemonade together. It's amazing the things I learn after the fact when I'm watching these videos back, doing my voiceover, things that I didn't even think about when I was making it. But so yeah, you live and you learn. Now I'm going to do a little bit of Copic coloring, and I will put the time on the screen. If you're not interested in watching the Copic coloring, you can skip forward to the time you see on the screen. But I've had a couple people ask me to leave in some of the Copic coloring, so that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been doing the last 6 months while I'm coloring here. First, the fish I'm using are from a couple different stamp sets. I used Fantastic Friends and Keep On Swimming. And then the whale that I'm using is from the Get Well Before and Afters stamp set. Alright, so while I'm coloring here, I'll just tell you, and some of you may already know a little bit about this because I've talked a little bit about my health problems, but I'll just share a little bit here. So all of my health problems started when I was 25 because I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. 2 years later, I think it was about 2 years, I had to have my entire large intestine removed. And then everything, that was fine. They created a J pouch out of my small intestine, so I don't have an outside bag or nothing. Everything's normal. Then I had my son in 2007. And then after I had him, he was 6 months old, I just started having all kinds of complications, all kinds of problems, all kinds of surgeries. I lost count, but I think I've had about 25 to 30 abdominal surgeries since this all started. But anyway, so in December, I kept getting small bowel obstructions. I would have to go to the emergency room here, get the NG tube, get everything pumped out, wait for it to clear up, and then I'd go home. But it wasn't clearing up. I just kept getting small bowel obstruction. So in February, I had a surgery, an exploratory surgery to remove scar tissue, most likely. That's what he was guessing was causing my problem. So that was it. He went in, he removed a bunch of scar tissue, but he couldn't see my whole large intestine, or my whole small intestine, because some of it was hiding behind my J pouch, and he just couldn't get to it for whatever reason. So unfortunately, that surgery was not successful. And it's crazy because, I mean, he opens me up from right below my bra line down to my bikini line. So it's, it's a 12 inch opening, incision. So I'm not sure what happened there, but anyway, so he closed me back up. Well, it didn't work. I was still getting small bowel obstruction. So I went home in February and I just was getting sick every single day. I was throwing up every single day from the time I got home from that surgery in February until the time I went in for my next surgery on June 3rd, every single day. It was absolutely miserable. And then right around there is when COVID happened, so I couldn't have surgery anyway. Well, first of all, he said he wanted me to stall as long as I can. He said, my surgeon said your insides are kind of like mush after a surgery, so he really didn't want to go in right away anyway. So I was trying to stall and basically wait for the hospitals to open back up. I made it until June, and then I couldn't do it any longer. I was getting sicker. I was getting sick more times during the day, and I could tell I was getting worse. So I went in June 3rd, and this was an 8-hour surgery. He said there was not a single inch of my small intestine that he did not run through his hands. So basically he got everything out that wasn't working. There was a large section that was just not wasn't helping me, so we cut that out. There was a small bowel obstruction like I thought there was, and this was my first surgery I've ever had where my mom wasn't with me. She's from my very first surgery. She's always been there with me, stayed the night at the hospital. It's about 5 hours away from where we live, where I have my surgeries. But with COVID, they wouldn't allow any visitors, so it was kind of scary to do a surgery by myself. I mean, I know I'm 40-something years old, but you know, it was just a new experience for me. But luckily, the following Monday, they opened it up to 1 visitor per patient just during the day. So she came every day until I was released. I was there for 10 days, I think. And she came and stayed with me during the day, which was very helpful. But now, I mean, I'm home, I'm eating, I'm not getting sick, I'm not on the IV food anymore. I just got off that, and I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, compared to what I was feeling like. So that's where I've been for all that time. I just was not feeling well. I didn't even feel good enough to craft, which is, you know, I mean, I had to have been on my deathbed to not be able to craft. But yeah, so I was on the couch every day, pretty much. Fun times, let me tell you. I'm just so thankful I'm healthy now. I mean, for the most part, I'm healthy. I'm alive. I'm able to craft again and just be with my family. I don't know, makes you think about things like that, you know. So anyway, wish I could say it was something a little more fun than that, but it could have been worse. Okay, to catch back up, I am cutting out the word thanks. I needed a thank you card, so I just decided to turn this one into a thank you card. And I'm using the Rounded Alphabet Small Wafer Die by Simon Says Stamp. And I'm just going to mark where, I'm just making little pencil marks so I know where to do my ink blending. So I wanted it to be 2 different colors. So it just kind of lets me see how high the letters are and how far over I need to go and stuff like that. And this is a scrap of Bristol Smooth cardstock, which works great for ink blending as well. So I'm just going to use that. And I'm ink blending Carved Pumpkin and Squeezed Lemonade. And it was a little bit wet. It stays a little bit wet on the Bristol Smooth cardstock for a second. So I'm just hitting it with my heat gun here, so don't cross-contaminate my blender brush. My yellow brush here. And then I'm just going to blend those 2 together until I get a nice smooth blend in between. You know, again, after the fact, I wish I would have used the carved pumpkin for my son too to make it stand out a little bit more. But that's okay. The spiced marmalade looks great. And once I get all of these letters popped out, I'm gonna turn around and use my purple tape again to hold the letters in place while I go over them with a glitter pen. And the clouds I'm using, I believe, are from Poppy Stamps, but Simon Says Stamp doesn't sell them any longer, but a very close comparison is the Simply Puffy Cloud Frames die by Fawn. So I'm going over it with my aqua shimmer pen here, which wasn't producing very much glitter, so I'm going to swap it out for my Spectrum Noir clear glitter pen. See, this is why it's always good to have backup. And then once I'm done with this, I'm going to set this aside to dry, and I am taking another piece of the Tim Holtz watercolor paper, and I just colored it with the Tumble Glass Distress Oxide ink because I want it to match. When you look through the slider, it needs to match my sky. All right, now I'm going to work on putting this slider all together, and I'm going to double up my foam tape for the back of the slider, so that way the penny has plenty of room to slide around. And then I'm going to trim the doubled up foam tape in half. It doesn't need to be that wide, so that way I can get it all the way around the back here. Now I could have just doubled up the front too, but I'll talk about that when I get to it. All right, so I I wanted it all the way around the frame, and then I'm just adding some extra foam tape in there just to give it some stability. But I wasn't quite sure where exactly the penny was going to go, so I'm going to go ahead and nail that down in place. And these are just some little extra pieces of the foam tape that were doubled up already. So I'm just going to trim one down to size and put it on my penny there. You might want to clean your penny too, so it doesn't leave marks on the back of the slider. So once I could see where that penny was going to go, I saw that I had to trim it down just a little bit more. So I'm going to do that. And now it can slide freely. What I did so the top layer is you got the sky, the ocean, and the sand, and then there's 2 additional layers. Well, the sky is a separate layer, but from the side, you know, I only colored the top of it, the tumbled glass, but from the side, the bottom was white, and also on the back part of the slider. So what I did is I just took both of the back pieces and I ink blended the same colors on the side, so that way it just looks a little bit cleaner. If you look at it from the side, you're not just seeing where I stopped the tumbled glass for the sky. So you'll see the tumbled glass, and you'll see the peacock feathers, and then you'll see the gathered twigs at the bottom. It just makes it look a little nicer. And then I am going around everything with the EK Success Powder tool, and I learned this from the very talented Kelly Marie Alvarez. She's the owner of Fawn, and I was trying to get an idea how to do this, and she said to go around everything, including the opening of the slider, and it'll just make it slide a lot easier. So that's what I did. And just in case the penny gets anywhere close to the foam tape on the back, just go all the way around the inside of the foam tape, and then it just makes it so it won't stick to it. I'm going to add some white little accents here, and I decided after the fact that I wanted my little whale to shine, so I added some Spectro Noir glitter pen to it. And here's my dog Kita. She's so tall that she can get up into my frame shot there, so I had to give her a little bit of attention for a second. Isn't she adorable? She's very cute, but she's very needs lots of attention and lots of exercise. I'm always being interrupted by a cat or a dog or a kid. Never fails. I learned this little trick from Kathy Zilski to line up 2 pieces that are the same size. You can use your score buddy and bump it up right into the corner there, and then they'll line up perfectly. So that's brilliant. I don't know why nobody thought of that sooner. But good idea, Kathy. Okay, now that my letters were dry, I just went over it with the crystal glaze, the Nouveau Crystal Glaze, just to give it a little something extra, make it stand out. I thought about popping them up on some craft foam, but that just seemed way too complicated, so crystal glaze it was. And so this is the very front layer, and so obviously it can be flat because there's nothing sliding here, so I just glued the sand, the hillside there, right to my ocean scene. And then I'm gonna glue my little fish in place here. It's such a cute die, the sandy beach accents. What a great idea. I mean, not only, it'd be great with just a little stitched wave there, but to have the little opening so you can have things poke out of it or peep out of it, I thought it was really fun. So once I get my fish all in place, then I'm gonna do let's see, so how do I explain this? So the front of the whale. Now I tripled it up here, and just because I had never done this before, I realized after the fact that wasn't necessary. It did not need to be tripled. It could have been doubled or maybe even 1 layer of the foam tape, but I just wanted the whale to move freely and not run into my wave. And the sun, I was worried about the sun too, but it doesn't, as long as I glued the sun down good so it doesn't come up anywhere. Yeah, the whale slides like it's supposed to. So when I do another one of these slider cards, I guess it just depends on, you know, how many moving parts you have in your slider card. But I definitely could have gotten away with just doubling up the front of the slider as well as the back. I hope that makes sense. And the clouds I used are a die I had in my stash. I think they're by Poppy Stamps, but Simon Says Stamp doesn't sell that anymore. But a very close comparison is the Lawn Fawn Simple Puffy Cloud Frames die. And then I just went over them with the Spectrum Noir glitter pen. I wanted everything to shine. Now here's my top layer, and it's way thicker than it needed to be, but that's okay. It's still an adorable card. And looky there, I have a slider card. I was so excited to do that. Alright, I want to glue my little sun in place here, and I used a face to put on my little sun from the Baked with Love stamp set by Lawn Fawn. I thought it was a cute little face. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure several of their stamps have little faces like that in it, so that's just the one I happen to have. And then, did I already say, I think I did, that I went over my clouds with a Spectrum Noir glitter pen? Who knows, I'll say it again. Anyway, okay, so here I wanted to make sure all my sun rays were glued down, so I don't want my whale getting caught up on anything. So that's what I did. Use the Gina K Connect glue to make sure it would stay in place. It's a nice sturdy glue. And then I'm just gonna add it to a background here. This is the Fake Tan cardstock by Lawn Fawn. Oh, and I did forget to mention that I used the Stitched Rectangles Stackables by Lawn Fawn. I used both the large and the small set, and I used the largest of both sets. And I don't need any more layers here, so I'm just going to use some score tape to glue this in place, and I'm using a lot of it just because it's kind of bulky and I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to go anywhere. And then I'm just going to glue that to a top folding card base. And that's pretty much it. So let me start wrapping this up. That's my video for this week. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the card that I made for this week's Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge. All of the supplies that I used are listed and linked in the video description below with affiliate links. So if you want to purchase any of the items that I used today, please use my links. That way I get a small commission at no cost to you, and it helps me make more of these videos. For more information on this card and the challenge, please head over to my blog, which is also in the video description. If you enjoyed this video, please click on that like button, and if you're new to my channel, please take a look around. I have lots of card tutorials if that's something that interests you. I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. And to those of you that have already subscribed, I thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I love chatting with you in the comments. So leave me a comment if you have any questions or just want to say hi, and I'll say hi back. There's a couple videos on your screen here if you want to take a look at them, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks again for watching. Bye.